Today is a very special day for me because 5 years ago exactly, I started my video production company, Southpoint Films. Now in retrospect, it's crazy how much the world of video production has changed since then. Back in 2013, we didn't have drones, we didn't have 360-degree cameras, and from my perspective, we didn't have Vimsy, which is a huge part of our business. Vine was still a thing, we didn't have Instagram TV, and the list goes on. So in thinking about how much technology has changed since then, in the next few minutes, I'm going to talk about what I think is going to change over the next 5 years. So, bear with me, we're going into the future. Let's start by talking about these, drones. Now, I love drones. I've got the license to use them commercially, and I've used them on many shoots where simply without them, the project would have been a complete dud. We've definitely been able to use these for some really interesting and practical shots over the last year or so that we've had them. The only thing is that I think these are going to change quite dramatically, not in terms of what they are or the functions, but in terms of who can get access to them and how they're used. So at the moment, anybody can go out there and buy one of these on the high street, take it home and fly it. I don't think that's going to be the case for much longer. In fact, next year, you're going to have to register your drone before you can use it. And I think particularly as companies in logistics and in deliveries are going to start using these for some of these purposes, the airways are only going to get more congested, which means more control and more regulation about how these can be used. So, as I said, I think in the next 5 years, there's going to be a dramatic shift in who has drones and what they're used for. And I think anybody other than professionals is going to really struggle to get their hands on anything more than just a toy. Next on my list is artificial intelligence. And while I'm not about to suggest that we're all going to be put out of our jobs in the next 5 years, I do think that it's going to start making its way in and potentially causing some disruption. For us video producers, I think it's quite clear the writing's on the wall with devices like the iPhone X, the XS, the Google Pixel and several other phones that have portrait mode for photos, which is when you take a picture of someone using one of these devices with portrait mode selected, it artificially blurs the background, creating a shallow depth of field effect that would never be possible optically with the lenses these devices have in them. When this feature inevitably comes to video mode on these smartphones, the line between what a professional video camera can do and what a smartphone can do is going to get shorter. And as a result, I think that's going to potentially pose some issues for us professional videographers, but also I think it may open up some opportunities, particularly for making our own equipment better. So we'll see how that goes. But that's a real example of artificial intelligence making its way into the world of video production. We can't have a conversation with portrait mode like you can with Siri, but it is AI. Next, virtual reality. Hello? Hello? There you are. Virtual reality, is it just a fad? I think virtual reality is one of those things that's very popular at the moment. But the reality of how it takes off is going to look quite different to what we've got today. To start with, I think this form factor is not the best. The headsets are uncomfortable. It's a form of sensory deprivation. I certainly wouldn't feel very happy being sat in my office all day with one of these on my head. But I do think it has some interesting use cases, particularly in respect to gaming, which I think it would be very popular for, and also in training scenarios in the very high end for things like the military, for the emergency services, for medical and so on, where you need people to be part of the scene. The difficulty with virtual reality at the moment, and I think this could become a trend over the next 5 years, is that just the cost of creating content for this format is very expensive. You have 360-degree video, which is very affordable, but it's quite limited in terms of how people interact with that content. For a fully immersive VR experience, you have to pay a lot of money for that because it requires software development, 3D modeling, and I don't see the cost of that decreasing dramatically in the next 5 years. But that's VR. As I said, I'm not sure this is the right format for it, but I don't think it's going away. I just think it might look a little bit different. Speaking of which, augmented reality. Augmented reality, or AR for short, is a mixed reality where you see the physical world with a digital world overlaid. You can experience this for yourself with your smartphone today with AR apps. There are plenty of them out there. They let you do things like measure things using your phone or overlay a piece of furniture in your living room that you don't have. It's very cool. But I don't think smartphones are really the ideal way of consuming this kind of content. And I think over the next few years, we'll see the introduction of some kind of headwear, maybe some sort of glasses that will superimpose this digital world over everything that you're seeing. In terms of video production, I think this opens up some opportunities because once AR is here, you won't be bound by the canvas of a screen. And I think particularly for 360-degree video, it could open up some opportunities here where it may be possible for people to simply jump into a 360-degree video and out of it again without having to put on some kind of headset like you would with VR. So we'll see how that goes. Obviously 5 years is not that long and we don't even have this technology yet. So I think there's every chance that we'll see it released within the next 5 years. And by the time 5 years rolls around, it'll probably be in a position that something like the Apple Watch or a Fitbit is in today, which is that these devices are not the ultimate view of what the quantified self looks like, but it's a start and you can see the trajectory. So AR has some potential, and I think over the next 5 years, we'll see how that goes. Finally, I have one more thing, which isn't quite as exciting or sexy as the others, but I think fundamentally it's probably the most important one. And over the next 5 years, I would expect to see the introduction of 5G networking and better infrastructure for the internet across the board. Obviously, with video, it's very, very bandwidth consuming. There's a lot of data in video files. So having a better infrastructure that allows people to access more content at higher resolution is going to enable us to see more 4K content, which is great. But I think the biggest impact is going to be on 360-degree content, which needs a lot of data because it needs to be able to fill the entire sphere around the person watching it. But also due to the proximity of this content to people's eyes, due to headsets, you need as much quality as you can get. So I think 5G and the infrastructure around it could be the springboard for making these formats popular, which could be a very big thing. So those are my thoughts on where I see video production technology going over the next 5 years. But it's only a prediction, I can't see the future. Please don't come back to this video in 5 years and tell me how wrong I was. I will just be very sad. But when I look at what I was using 5 years ago versus what I'm using today, I have to be honest, not a lot has changed. The technology's gotten faster, it's got a few more features, the resolution's better, there's more capacity, and of course we've got new techniques like drones and we've got 360-degree cameras. But at the end of the day, the way people tell stories hasn't changed at all. And that's what we'll still be doing in 5 years' time. Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. And speaking of ends, I'm going back to the party. Thanks for watching.